Boys, I can't ever make the argument that a fellow like this Boulder shooter should have been allowed to own a weapon. We've got to figure out a way to prevent disturbed people from owning weapons. I don't think that infringes upon my Second Amendment rights. This guy had red flags flying all over the map, including back to high school, where he got kicked out for beating up a kid. He was reported to be sullen, and his family saw him with this thing, and they didn't do anything about it. He bought it a week ago. I would love to know the process he had to go through because it wasn't stringent enough.
Yeah. Well, first of all, let's call him what he is. He's a criminal, and
Yep.
criminals shouldn't have firearms, even though evidently from what I've read, he doesn't have any sort of criminal history. So what you're talking about here is the red flag law, which already exists. And let me read from the thing so I don't get it wrong. In the United States, a red flag law is a gun control law that permits police or family members to petition a state court to order the temporary removal of firearms from a person who may present a danger to others or themselves. Now, I have some issues with that, and I have no issue. Obviously, I'm confused about this, but something should have been done here. It seems to me that there were failures on a number of levels here that should have prevented this. You're right, Joe.
I don't think the price of freedom should include the possibility of dying at the supermarket. Let me rephrase that.
Well, I understood.
Guys like Bill O'Reilly have said these shootings are the price of freedom. We can do better than that. It should not be a price of freedom to lose a family member in the produce aisle at a supermarket. That should not be the price of freedom.
Correct.
Freedom, one of the problems in our culture, if not the world, hand in hand with the decline of moral and ethical integrity, is the absence of the realization that along with the freedom goes responsibility. And responsibility seems to be getting set aside more and more. The system, whatever that is, the system has a responsibility to have prevented Ahmad al-Aliwi Alyssa from owning a weapon in the absence of Ahmad al-Aliwi Weenie not having any responsibility. He had no moral imperative to keep himself from buying a weapon. And I think if the system had prevented him from buying a weapon, I don't think my Second Amendment rights would have been trampled on. I don't want crackpots to own weapons. That shouldn't be the price of freedom.
So, Kenny, when you say he shouldn't have been allowed to buy the firearm, does that then place the blame on the place that he purchased the firearm from?
And the background check that he completed. I know in this state, in order to buy certain firearms, you need to get a permit to purchase, or your permit to carry already serves as that. So did he pass that? Where did he buy this? Why? There's no sort of psychological test from what I understand. And I just went through this process again a couple of weeks ago up here in Douglas County. And as far as I know, it's just a background check. It's just to check to see for criminal history.
Well, then, but none of this fellow's problems apparently went along with him in life.
Right.
They kept getting dropped by the wayside. So now it's 2021, and he enters wherever he bought this, and he's able to procure it, apparently without whoever sold it to him knowing about his past.
Correct. And who's to blame for that? I don't know.
So if they yesterday it came out, I think it was the Associated Press, said that he had purchased the firearm 6 days prior to the incident, which means that they have to know where he made the purchase from, correct? One would think.
Yeah, they're not revealing that, and I don't know why. It turns out, by the way, that he was on the radar of the FBI,
Well,
but only because the FBI was interested in an associate of his or a friend of his. And so they really, to say he was on their radar is a bit of misnomer. They were aware of him, but again, only because he was familiar with someone else the FBI had been wondering about. Investigators have not established a motive. Law
Can we
enforcement, yes, go ahead.
yeah, back up to that. So what's going on here? I don't, shouldn't that alone slow down the process? You would think it would,
You
wouldn't
would
you?
think so. You would think so.
All right, thank you.
But it seems to me that what we're suggesting, which is a serious tightening of a would-be owner's capability to be law-abiding, is a better reaction to this horrible event in Boulder than these knee-jerk demands for more gun control. Gun control isn't the problem. It's nutcases and the disturbed who are a problem.
Correct.
When he
And
was
the-
in high school as a senior, he was found guilty of assaulting a fellow student in class. That's according to a police affidavit. So, okay, so given modern technology, this guy goes to buy a gun. He gives him his name. Then the guy at the gun counter, he's got to type something into a computer. And it should have come up that the police were involved in having to quell a disturbance when this kid was a senior in high school because he beat the living crap out of a classmate.
And
Now,
does
now
that-
the now the NRA people are going to say to me, "Well, you're not going to let him. You're not going to forgive him for that incident when he was in high school, huh?" Well, you know what? No, I guess I'm not.
Well, but Joe,
I guess I'm not.
all of
Well,
us
that
have been in a
was-
fight in high school.
That's exactly what I was going to say, Joe.
What?
What you just said the NRA is going to say. And what Chris just said is true.
But he was also
yeah.
noted. It was also noted that it was not uncommon for this behavior. That he was routinely prone to rage.
Okay.
Okay, that's different than you and me and Reavers getting into an occasional fight in high school.
But where did that come from? The occasional rage, is that from the family? Is that something that was cited medically? Where did that come
Is
from?
this rumor? Is this fact? Where is it recorded? Is this a professional psychological evaluation?
Came from the school.
Okay.
Also, it came from teammates on his high school wrestling team.
Okay.
He threatened to kill everyone on the team.
Okay, that's
was
a red
it.
flag.
Okay,
That's
then he was
significant.
okay. Then he was kicked off the team for that outburst.
That is
He was just one of
significant.
those guys with a short fuse. Angel Hernandez told the Associated Press. Once he gets mad, it's like something takes over, and it's not him. There is no stopping him at that point.
Okay.
Well, okay, you're not getting a gun in my world, pal. If I have access to that.
What measures do you want to put into place that aren't already there in order to accomplish that goal? That's where we're going to find the argument and the back and forth and the bickering.
Oh, it's such a dreadfully slippery slope. Because
Yeah.
what I would have to be advocating is more instantaneous computer access to every individual in the country.
Yep.
So this guy goes in, and what pops? See, if I went in, ideally nothing's going to pop up, and I buy the weapon. But if this guy goes in, what's going to pop up is his high school wrestling teammates noting that he had threatened to kill them all, that he was prone to rage, that he bloodied a classmate, that he was kicked out of the wrestling team, he was kicked out of school and put into community service. Those are all red flags to me. But how do I get there? How do those get assembled without a complete trampling of your privacy?
Exactly.
And I don't know.
Exactly.
I don't know.
And yeah, as for the big talk now is outlawing these things and taking them away. you do realize that's not going to change a thing, right? That is not what you're doing. You're going to end up removing firearms from law-abiding citizens like me, and a firearm in my hand is not a danger to society, and it's locked up in a safe, and it can't be accessed, it can't be ripped off, and so what you're doing, it's the old adage, Joe. Locks are for honest people.
Gun control laws affect only honest people.
Yep.
They have nothing to do with the problem in this country,
Yep.
which is personal behavior, individual responsibility, moral and ethical integrity. Gun laws are applied only to you and me, period.
How come the antis don't see it that way? What are they seeing that we don't see?
Well, because they want a finger point right away, Kenny.
No, it's deeper than that. It's deeper than that. The Mysterians don't want guns because they'll never have full control unless they get them. Now, I don't want to go deep end off a helicopter here, but the idea of the government completely controlling your lives cannot take place unless the government has complete control of all weapons.
Firearms. Right.
Firearms.
That's just a personal thing with me, and I don't know why it's there. But
So back to the background check issue, and I know each state is different, Kenny, but let's just say in this state in particular, what would prevent me from owning or being able to purchase a firearm at DK Mags or whatever? Is it a felony? Is it a misdemeanor? Is it several? What is it that will prevent me from obtaining a gun?
what would prevent me from
Well, a
buying
felony
a
for
gun?
sure.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know.
Let's bring this closer to home. Have the police ever satisfactorily explained why this crackpot in Delano so easily got a permission to buy a weapon?
In the Buffalo shooting?
At Buffalo. What did I say?
You said Delano.
Okay, I mean, he's drunk on his ass all day long. They had familiarity with him. He's a complete lunatic, and yet he just was able to get a weapon.
I can answer your question, Chris. It's long, and I'm reading from a lawyer's website here. Minnesota law generally prohibits firearm possessions by a person who has been convicted, adjudicated delinquent, or convicted as an extended jurisdiction juvenile of committing a crime of violence. And it goes on and on and on. There's a long list of people who cannot be allowed to buy a firearm in this state. And it's mostly to do with previous crime, domestic abuse, child abuse, has been convicted by the court, is a fugitive, is an unlawful user of a controlled substance, is an undocumented immigrant, dishonorably charged from the services, has renounced citizenship, has been convicted of stalking within 3 years, gross misdemeanor stalking crimes, and a long list of other crimes, including rioting.
Wow. So basically, all of these judges that are letting, the catch and release program that we like to cite, none of those people would be qualified to go to DK Mags to purchase a gun, but yet they're on the street getting them illegally anyway.
There you go. And that will never change.
I naively, I think I've brought this up before, and you don't have to write me emails, GLers, because I see the fundamental problem in my thinking, but wouldn't it be great that if everybody who worked in the gun sales industry took it upon themselves to make the decision? They can't. They'd get sued and this and that and the other thing. But you see this moron come in and he's cross-eyed and he's sweating heavily, and you start to ask him a few questions and you say to him, you know what? I'm not going to sell you one. I don't want to.
I'm glad you brought that up because I do believe that's happening, and where I know it's happening is the dreaded and very scary gun show purchases, where the prices of firearms are a bit higher for certain firearms because of the demand. And from what I understand in this state, if you sell somebody a firearm, and now I'm just winging it here, so if I make a mistake, GLers, you can correct me, but if you sell a fella a firearm, that firearm is then used in a felony or a crime, they can come back to you. And I know of numerous incidences where sellers at gun shows say, nope, not today, pal, and they send them away.
I find that heartening. I find that reassuring.
Well, of course, it's never talked about because
Right.
the people that want gun control assume that the people that sell at gun shows are just criminals,
Right,
and
right.
they don't care who they sell to, and they don't think there'll be any consequences. That is
Right.
not true.
Would then holding, whether it's retailers or shows like you're talking about, Kenny, holding them more accountable, would that help?
I think it's already happening, Chris.
Okay.
And I can't answer your question. I don't know if it helps, and I don't know of any instances where they've done that.
Because the reason I asked that is there's a large retailer that's very near me that sells firearms. And I know that a neighbor guy of mine went up there, tried to make a purchase. They made him wait a couple of days like normal. And for whatever
Yeah.
reason, and he was fine with it, by the way. He's like, oh, okay, I have to go.
yeah.
So, and that happened.
That's normal.
So that's-
so it was normal for like a hunting firearm.
Yes, that's
or a
exactly what it was.
Shotgun or a 30-06 or
Yeah. He and his son were
30-30,
going to
whatever.
go deer hunting. This was a
Right.
while ago. This was a couple years ago.
That's completely normal, and the way fellas like me get around that is that we've already had the background check. So when I go to buy a firearm, I give them my card, I give them my permit to carry card, I give them my ID, and I walk out of there with the firearm because I've already gone through the check.
Got it. Yep.
So much of this is so simple. The left blames the gun, and GLers blame the individual.
Yeah.
And GLers, you people in Euphoria and Liberal Lakes and Diversityville, we're terribly interested in a solution. And I'll tell you why. The guns aren't going away. And I don't believe the price of freedom should be your brother or sister or wife or child getting shot at a supermarket. I want to cure that. I don't believe that should be the price of freedom.
Believe
In fact,
me,
I think that's BS.
We're crushed. Believe me, absolutely crushed. This, there are 10 people and all their families that no longer have their loved ones. That's crushing.
Including a cop who left a six-figure salary to serve the public, had 7 kids, and was just probably shy of getting a little better assignment in the department because he wanted to take himself more out of harm's way so he could raise his 7 kids.
It's heartbreaking.
That should not be the price of freedom. So I'm going to reject that argument. If that's the argument coming from the right, or if that's the argument coming from Fox News, or if that's the argument coming from the NRA, I reject it wholeheartedly. Me losing a loved one in a bleeping grocery store because of a madman who should never have had a gun is not the price of freedom.
We need to get all parties concerned at the table and work this out. There has to be a way that doesn't infringe on the rights of people like us. Even Matthew Mikulski, the rookie, went and bought a shotgun for his son to use at draft
Which terrifies me. It terrifies me. I'm kidding.
And he took personal responsibility and attended the firearms training courses.
Yep.
And
the
that's what you need to do.
And the other part of it too is, 10 people lost their lives 2 days ago, and the vast majority of the American public was worried about what skin color the shooter had, which
And
is
they still are.
that's really what you're worried about here.
American. That's all you need to know. American.
Born in Syria and then has spent most of his life here. But you know what? Ali, Abdul, Ababa Waba, you come into my store, bleep you. I don't like you. I don't like you. I don't like your vibe. That's how I'd run my store, but of course I'd be drummed out of America for that.
Well, you might not. Yeah. But Chris, you really hit on something. So here we are grieving over these 10 people and grieving for their families. And this is what we're faced with. Number one, it's a white guy, middle-aged white guy, most dangerous person in the world, and Trump supporter. Well, it turns out both were completely wrong, completely false. The guy hated Trump.
Because everybody was hyperventilating to get their piping hot take out there right away.
And nothing is getting solved by this finger pointing. Like I said, both parties at the table, let's work this out. There's got to be a solution.
When we come back, I want to talk about the disappointing the disappointing presidency of Barack Obama.